Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me good. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk about preparing a game release. My name is Simon. I'm the project lead at Flanders DC for our projects in the game industry. And today I'll be the host of this webinar. In a minute, I'll be passing the word to our guest speaker, Michiel, who you can see already. But first, as always, some practical information. In this webinar, we have a chat room in which you could see, on the right-hand side of your screen. It's where you can say good morning to each other. So good morning, everybody. If you have questions during the webinar, you can ask those in the other tab, the questions tab. There you can see also the questions of other people. And if you see a question that you like or that you really want to be answered, just hit the small arrow next to the question to give it an upvote so we see which questions are the most important ones. I'll be keeping an eye on those questions, and at the end of the webinar, I'll pass them on to Michiel during the Q&A. Then as a last remark, Michiel will also be using a slide deck. There's no need to copy it or to copy the information on it. We will be sharing it as a download, but only after you complete the evaluation survey for this webinar. So normally we'll be sending you that today or tomorrow, and then you'll get the slide deck. Right, then it's time for our speaker, Michiel Verheijdt. He's a senior marketing manager at Good Shepherd Entertainment, which is a Dutch video game publisher. They really are at the heart of indie game development. They have published several really great sellers like Monster Train, Transport Fever, and also John Wick Hex. Michiel has more than 20 years of marketing experience in the game industry, so very relevant experience for us to hear. He will be sharing some tactics on how to prepare a public game release as a self-publisher. I really look forward to learn from his experience. So I'd say, let's go. Michiel, if you're ready, I'd like to pass the word. You can start sharing your slide deck.
Yep.
And
good morning, everybody.
There you go. We can see it full screen. Perfect. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on. It's the game webinar preparing for a release. So Simon already introduced me. I work for Good Shepherd. Good Shepherd is a publisher who at heart wants to do good in the industry. We want to help independent developers get the best out of their game, help them towards release, and make that release, of course, successful. So we have a little bit of altruistical approach towards game development, but mind you, we still want to make money. That's part of our business model, so that's always going to be part of that one. So we publish great games made by amazing people. So some titles already came by: Transport Fever, John Wick Hex, and Monster Train. Those are just a few games that we released recently. We started out a few years back just as a financial platform to back new developers, help them get their game published. But we found out that they needed a lot of marketing support. So sort of through the process, we developed from a truly financial platform towards a more publishing service. And since 2 years, we really are a full-fledged publisher in that perspective. So who am I? I've been in the industry for 20 years this year. That sort of surprised me just as well. I started back in the day. Even before I started working at Ubisoft, I was writing reviews and game descriptions for several retailers for their websites. That was back in the day when websites were something crazy. I started working with Ubisoft Benelux, was local marketing manager for the Netherlands. Did that for about 9 years. Then I switched to Ubisoft HQ in Paris. I started working on the editorial department, which has been unfortunately a little bit negative in the news lately. But at that time, it was still bristling with energy and cool people. I did IP development for the Tom Clancy products, for Far Cry, and some other products which never saw the light of day. But it was cool. It was working more from an IP approach compared to a brand approach, which is quite different. But after a while, I felt that I've seen many aspects of the game industry and I wanted to come back to the Netherlands. So I started working for Reshift, or actually at the time it was Sanoma. I did Gamer.nl, Inside Gamer.nl. I had a few casual game sites as well there. Ended up at Reshift Publishing there. I did Power Limited as well there. So we had a TV program online, lots of cool stuff. And I wanted to find out how to make money as a media publisher. So I did a transformation there. But I can tell you traditional media is suffering even at that time. Then I had one last thing that I really liked, that's hardware. So I jumped in with Supermicro. I'm a big PC gamer, so I got some nice, got my hands on nice hardware there. Started to do EMEA and marketing for them. And after a while, I did miss my game industry. So I came back to Good Shepherd because I do love the whole fact that Good Shepherd in its DNA is helping young developers get their game out there and make it a successful game. So let's talk about game releases. So if I talk about game releases, this is sort of how I look at it. We have the pre-announcement. That's the part when you are thinking you haven't told anybody about your game yet. You're thinking about audiences, you're creating assets, key art, trailer, that kind of stuff. Then you go towards announcement. Announcement is the moment that your people know about your game. You're set on a course and you need to go forward there. Then it's time really to start working on the community, preview phase, and then towards review. That means releasing your game, and then it's post-launch. So there are like two magical moments in this timeline. It's the moment when you are still behind the curtains and you announce your game, and the moment when you're going to release your game. So that makes me segment this whole timeline in 4 phases. It's the prepare phase, it's community communicating and building phase. You're launching your game, and then you're just extending your life cycle. And this is something really important. Most pitches I receive from new game developers, they forget about what's going to happen after they launch your game. Yeah, we're going to do some bug fixing, that kind of stuff. No, but you really need to think about at least a year ahead how you're going to support your game, how you're going to keep it fresh and updated, and why I'm going to tell you in a few minutes. So let's talk about phase 1, preparation. This is the phase where you need to be talking to as many people as possible. You need to validate what you've defined as an audience, your USPs. And think about your USPs. A USP should be something different than your main competitor has, because a USP is not like I have more detail in my artwork or I have more gameplay in there. No, that just doesn't work. You need to have something really unique that people can remember easily. And it also stands out compared to the competition. So audiences, USPs, and positioning. Positioning is just saying what your game is about in 2 or 3 lines. Just really making sure that you take the advantages of your game and the experience that you're going to bring to them. Define your competition. No, my game is unique. Nobody else has a game like this. Then you find competition that's really close towards that and try to define yourself if you look at them. Define your primary community platform. Community platform, is it Reddit? Is it Imgur? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Find the one that matches best towards your game. I'll get back to that a little bit later. And this is also the phase where you start looking at which kind of influencers are playing games like mine. Throughout the presentation, I'll be referencing a lot towards Monster Train, which came out May 21st last year. And we use a lot of energy to really look at which influencers were key to making this game successful. Same with key media. And last but not least, create a lot of assets and create a little bit more than you would need for just the immediate launch, because it's going to make your life so much easier if you have a portfolio of different kind of assets to use. An asset could be, for example, an announcement image that you use in Steam, and you have like 5 different versions from that one. Could be as simple as that, but it's going to save you so much time, and it will also make the game on the Steam page much more dynamic. So let's talk audiences. So it's super difficult to find specific data on an audience, but it's not impossible, and it's something you can discover yourself as well just by talking to the audience you think is relevant in there. So that could be, who is your audience? Define it, just write it down. Are they people who like playing card games? Is it people who like strategy? Would you say they also play competitive games like, I don't know, Dragon Age? Is it Command & Conquer? Find games that really are similar towards yours and look at what kind of audiences they are targeting. And where is that audience? Which media are they using? Are they using traditional media or are they using influencers? Maybe if you're making a game for an audience that's 65 years and plus and older, you might want to jump into a little bit more printed media because I have a whole different way of consuming media and different locations as well. So another one is how, if you find a little bit frames where to put your audience in, you start digging into, you find places where they talk to each other and you find out how they talk to each other. Do they use specific slang? Do they use specific words? Are they specific issues within the genre that everybody is referencing all the time? Find the different memes, I would say, that match your audience. And it could be just as well that you're defining like 6 or 7 different audiences. And each audience later on, you're going to talk about who they are, what you're going to talk to them, on which platforms and which tools you're going to use for that one, and also how you're going to validate or measure if you've been successful there. So media influencers, I talked about that one. If it was 10 years back, I would really just say media, maybe 15 years. But these days, influencers are so important for the gaming audience. So many people look at them. And it's usually like the spider and the web functionality. You always have this one expert in your family or in your friend circle that is, I don't know, the guy you go to when you want to buy a mountain bike. It's the same for games. People have like this truly hardcore gamer in their friending circle. And they come to them, and that hardcore gamer goes to an influencer to get its news and information. So that's the route sort of you need to follow there. So be specific there. Don't be afraid. Define multiple audiences. There's something on the right as well with the image there. For example, it's a meme, of course. This is not true, but you aim your marketing at a certain audience, but there's also like this audience that really looks up to that game and wants to play it as well. So Call of Duty, it's aimed at the more mature player, of course, like 18 to 24 years old. But actually 12 to 18 play the most Call of Duty. Typical discussion there. Audience, all right, so slang. For Monster Train, like I said, I will be referencing a lot towards that one. We targeted Northern Lion because he was key success to the biggest competitor, being Slay the Spire. So we talked to him, but before I actually got to engage with him, I checked him out, found the memes, and there was this mention of the word poke, to poke. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I jumped into that one, that rabbit hole. It's something like a positive word people use, like I'm poking, I'm winning. There's so much to do there. So I dived into that slang and used that in the marketing, and that immediately got a reaction from the audience because they liked it. They were happy about it, and we treaded carefully in using it. So we didn't use it all the time, but just on specific moments with specific community assets, and people really liked it. So competition, next phase. It's just not, you're not just competing with other games. There's more to consider there as well, because you probably know which games your game you're making is competing with, or at least in the general sphere. But there's more to it. You're also competing for the available budget that a gamer has to spend on a game this month. You're competing with other games in the media because they, especially the traditional or the specialized online media, they've been hollowed out in their financial situation. They're not making that much money again. So they're choosing the games to write about that get the maximum amount of page views because that will bring money towards them. So it's difficult to bring your game in there. And if there's like 2,500 other indie games stalking the same editor at the same time, it's going to be super difficult to get there. One of the ways to show a journalist that your game is already alive and happening is to validate the audience, bring him information about the audience, tell him so many people already visited the Steam page, so many other people already saw the trailer. Use that kind of metrics to really convince him, not to boost to brag about your game, but just say there's already a community there. We feel it would be a good contribution to the media outlet, and you're pretty sure that if they take the lead in this one, they'll be very much unique in the media world. And media need unique content because that brings visitors, of course. Same as with the influencers as well. They can't cover all the games, so be early. Make sure you already establish a personal relationship with the influencer, and try to get your game in there when it matters most. Should you be going to physical retail? Again, shelf space is not flexible. It's not moving around. They can't just put an extra meter next to it. So be ready there, and also understand that if there's like 6 AAA games coming out in November, maybe it's not the best time to launch your game as well, because gamers won't have any budget left, media don't have time to write about it, influencers are playing something else, and there's no shelf space in the physical retail stores, or just attention on the online stores just to get your front coverage, the right promotional spots on the front page. Those are all taken by the AAA, so it's maybe not the best time to bring your game down. Same with agencies as well, although I think as a beginning developer, agencies might be a little bit less relevant, but maybe you're using an agency for influencers to contact them. So an example on how to map yourself to the competition. So I took the most basic one I created. I created about 20 of these small comparison charts for Monster Train. And the trick here is every time you do a new comparison, you find a little bit more about what your game is compared to the other games. It makes it so much easier to find your USPs, to make sure that you can differentiate yourself very clearly from the competing games in the market. And it just makes your life a lot easier. So go wild on these and discuss them with your friends. Make a lot of them, because every time you do this, you're getting a little bit more specific on your own game and how to talk about it. Then comes the part when you're moving to a storefront. So right now for PC, we have 2. We have Epic Games and we have Steam. We have Windows stores as well, but I'm not expecting you guys to be really focusing on that one. To be honest, 90% goes for Steam, of course. Most developers or small developers, starting developers, when they go for Epic, Epic brings them a great promotional package. So that could be a reason to go for Epic. Of course, the cut they take is lower compared to Steam, but there's still a big difference in ecosystem that Steam provides you compared to what Epic provides. And if you have the choice and it doesn't matter to you, for now, I would lean towards Steam. I'm not saying you have to go for Steam, but the services and the backend packages that Steam is providing is just so much more developed at the moment. Epic is just not there yet. But does Epic bring a big pile of money and great promotional opportunities towards you? I would seriously consider that, because it will help you a lot. But there's some plus sides and downsides to it. On the bottom, I've created a few screenshots of different storefronts. These are just key resellers. But if you engage them in the right way, they resell Steam keys or Epic keys, they don't mind. It can bring you new attention, other audiences, and it will just extend a little bit more on the revenue that you're making. The one on the right is Cloudplay. It's Magenta from Germany. It's T-Mobile. And like so many others, they are starting up right now and streaming as a service where you just stream your games in the cloud and you can play them on a low spec machine. This is something that's developing quite rapidly. There are multiple services, of course, but there are a lot of white label solutions for these kind of people right now. So I'm expecting that there's going to be a big bump in different services that are going to bring streaming to a larger audience. And for the Western market, it might maybe not be the biggest market there, but if you go for Asia or India, for example, they don't have big PCs or strong PCs, less budget available per person, but they can stream, of course. That's okay for them. So I'm going to continue with Steam. I'm using Monster Train as well. This is just how to look at your Steam page, because your Steam page is the primary interaction point between you and your audience. Steam sort of helps you come to light at the front page when it matters most. I'll get back to that a little bit later. But there are some tricks as well to get more into the promotional side. Before you go into that, make sure your Steam page is just absolutely brilliant. This is something you need to spend a lot of time in. There's a lot of stuff happening at the page, so I'm sorry. So on the left, you see the top end of the page. You'll see that my small capsule that says DLC out now. That's based on the key art for Monster Train. Then there's a short description. I can't stress enough how much time you need to spend on this one, because that's going to help you a lot, and it's going to be visible everywhere. So based on the positioning, you expand upon it and you tell what the gamers can expect for the game as well. And you use the magic words in there that everybody is looking for. So for Monster Train, the biggest discussion was it's strategic, it's a roguelike deck building game, and it has a twist on it. So those were the key elements we wanted to push forward in there. So that's in the first sentence there. If you look at the right, that's more the description of the game. And we're using some of it is static art, but mostly it's GIFs, it's moving animations. And I'm absolutely in love with what Frostpunk did with their Steam page. So I just cut the images out there. But you see that it's moving, it's sort of animated, but it's not all over the place. It really fits well within the page, and it brings immediately a sense of identity of what the game is and what you can expect. It sets a tone specifically on the graphical side. On the bottom, you see X4, which is one of those games with a strong community backing. It's the fourth iteration, of course. And they are using their main assets in Steam to communicate. So they're telling a 4.0 update is out, where you can do terraforming. If you would look at the Monster Train image, it says DLC out now. So you use your existing assets in the game as well to continue communicating to your audience even way after release. Because everybody who starts up Steam clicks on the library, you get this beautiful overview of all your games and what's happening on those games. And that's where these kind of images pop up. And it really helps you to get your life cycle in there later on, extended. Just something on the right, you will see as well that there's a Metacritic score. We've been nominated for the DICE Awards, and PC Gamer gave us the Best Card Game of 2020 award. Every award that you get should be in there, just to make sure that people understand that a lot of people have seen the game, they're playing the game, they're valuing the game, they are reviewing it very positive, and you're getting awards, so you must be a good game there. And that makes it, for a lot of people who are maybe less connected to your game, they look at those kind of elements. Oh, maybe I'll try it. Let's see what the Metacritic score is. Did they get any awards? What's happening on the page? Does it appeal to me? And then they will buy it, especially if you're in the lower price tiers where it's more easier for people to spend money on. It's easier to spend $10 compared to spending $50, for example, or let's call it euros, 10 euros versus 50 euros. It's real easy to do the 10 euro thing. That's okay. But 50 euros, that's also a night clubbing. So let's discuss there. I'm going to the next page. This is something more about the great Steam machine. This is how we look at Steam. So Steam has this self-fulfilling prophecy ingrained into it. If you have an active community, the store will pick that up, and that community needs to be happening on the store page of your product page. The store will pick that up, see, oh, there's a lot of people going to your game. Let's bring it forward because apparently it's popular. At that moment, the game comes forward more on Steam, and when more people see it on Steam, there's a small percentage that's going to buy the game. So that's going to increase the sales, and a lot of sales will create online visibility, not just in Steam, but on other places. And online visibility attracts new audiences, or at least new people from the audience. They're going to visit your Steam page. And from that moment on, Steam will see there's a new influx of players into the Steam page. It's going to be more popular. You get even more store visibility. So we utilize this really successfully with Monster Train in the first few weeks. We've spent the first 2 weeks in the top 5 just because there was so much buzz going on that dragged so many other players to the Steam page. And that sort of got this flywheel spinning. And we stayed there for at least 2 weeks in the top 5. And for the last 2 weeks of the initial launch month, we were in the top 10. And it was all thanks due to this system. Just making sure there's a lot of stuff happening online that's drawing people to your product page. Steam will pick it up, give you more visibility on the storefront, and that's going to increase sales. Sales could also be translated into wishlisting if you're not released yet. Or even after release, of course, people can still wishlist you. And that's a really active pool of interested people. So the amount of people who are wishlisting your game is something also as a boost of success, because you can re-engage with them later on, of course. You can send them messages specific to converting them from wishlisters towards sales. Here are a lot of strategies to be made. And just keep this concept in mind. Of course, getting online visibility is not something that falls out of the sky or grows on trees. You really need to spend a lot of energy in there and have a plan how to do it. Consoles. I'll briefly touch upon this one just to show you a little bit on how we look at the console releases. You'll see at the bottom 3 screenshots. It's on the Microsoft Store. And they butchered my key art because they have this really white block that put really in your face. If you look at the PlayStation Store, that's the middle one. It's really timid. There's a small little gray box on the lower left, which is fine. And Nintendo sort of gives you the whole overview. But you see how they're using my key art. Every time it's different. And if you now, this is sort of easy key art. But if you have really busy key art with lots of stuff happening in there, keep in mind that it's going to be super difficult to create store assets. Well, I'm not sure if everybody wants to jump immediately into the whole shebang of doing a console release, because that's quite different from doing a Steam release. Console release means approvals from the platform holders, and that means taking the time to do so. Be really detailed in how you create a trailer. Just make sure that there's no mouse pointers on screen anywhere if you're capturing assets, for example. Age ratings need to be done there. And all the assets, all the storefronts have specific asset needs. So there's a lot of work in there. So I thought one of the questions that came by, and I'll touch upon that a little bit later, some more, but the question between self-publishing and getting a publisher on board, I would say if you're doing console releases, it might be really worthwhile to look deep at whether or not you want to do it yourself, or if a publisher might be somebody who can help you. Of course, using a publisher means giving away money as well, because the publisher needs to spend money as well, need to cover the cost, that kind of stuff. And we like to make some margin as well. Community platform. I talked about this in the beginning. This is something which is super important for us, at least, especially if you're a community-driven game. And I would argue most games are community-driven. You need a primary platform to communicate with your audience and with the people who are fan of your game. So for Monster Train, we chose Discord. Why? Because it's a super fast game. It has really short iterations, so short runs. If you're a good player, you can do a run in 20-25 minutes. So it means also that there's a lot of discussion on balancing, and it goes really fast. So we wanted to have a chat-like environment where people could chat with us, with the developer, and also amongst each other. So we could see where the pain points are, where there's no balance, where there was maybe something which was OP, or maybe something that needed to be buffed. Of course, we did Reddit, and we did Facebook and Steam forums, of course, which is super important. But you need one main platform. Why? Because you can invite everybody. Hey, we are on Discord. That's where we have the discussion. Of course, we are on Reddit and the other platforms, but here is where you get your answer quickly. And especially with the smaller teams, you don't have the resources to make sure that all the platforms are being answered. You get all the details from there. No, you choose one. That's where you spend your energy. And that will give you the biggest return as well, because you can't cover everything. And I would say if you already have a name for your game, secure that handles immediately because those are super valuable. For Monster Train, for example, we did not have Monster Train. We needed to go for the Monster Train. Well, not a big issue. It sort of made it, especially for Twitter and Facebook. For Reddit and for Discord, we've got the normal handle called Monster Train. But it's something, if you're going to do it, if you know it already, please take time to make sure that you got your handles there. If you would have, for example, a more strategic game or story-driven game, I would say Reddit might be a better platform for that, for example. And if you don't want to spend any energy outside of Steam or whatever, or you feel like let's get everything in Steam, because if a lot of people are active on your forums, it contributes to the whole Steam machine flywheel system. So that could also be a strategic choice to move them towards Steam. Hey, let's talk about communicating. For all my campaigns, I use the PISO model as the basis. Not so much as I am completely convinced about it, but it's a great starting point, and it will make sure that you check all the different boxes and just make sure that you're covered on all the different areas. And also, where is your strength, where you can contribute most and get the most out of it as well. And for Monster Train, I would say, as an example, this populates the customer journey. And the customer journey, again, is one of those power marketing terms from a few years back. But the trick here is just, again, it will give you a different perspective on what kind of journey gamers will take until they get to the purchasing point of your game. And it will also maybe inspire you to do combinations between them. So we used an online beta for Monster Train where people could test the game before it came out. We used that with email, with online ads, and with influencers, of course. And we tried to mix those as much as possible because I wanted to get emails in there for people to sign up to the newsletter, because I could have a core audience I communicate with. I could load them up into Facebook and see what kind of lookalike audiences I can get from there. And for post-launch activities like DLC or free updates,
Michiel, can you hear me? I noticed everybody's noticing your sound is left, so your sound is gone. We can't hear you, Michiel. I see you're gonna try another microphone. We're getting something with a high beep. Are you there yet, Michiel? Can you hear us? Just some technical difficulties.
Testing.
Yes, there you are. There you are. We can hear you.
All right, sorry everybody. It's just one of those things that the battery on my headset just died.
Great, thanks.
A little bit more. Let's go forward. Where was I? All right, so the customer journey. I like this one as well because you made your plans in the preparation phase, and then you're sort of announcing the game, and you're getting a lot of feedback from your community. That means you need to adapt your plan, and you need to validate it as much as possible to see what the things that you thought were going to work are actually going to work. So that means you need to validate a lot of stuff. So in the second phase, you're talking about building up your funnel. Another typical marketing thing, but you have your core audience that signs up for your newsletter, visits you on your community platform, goes into the Steam forums, has wishlisted your game. He's your friend already, but you need more people there because that will create more sales, of course. So that means communicating, getting people as much as possible in that funnel, and that funnel is sort of connected to the customer journey, of course, because they're using the same phases in there. So you need to put as many people in there just to make sure that's going to work. Your Steam store page is going to be a big part of that one as well. Influencers. So do you use direct contact versus tools. Some of the influencers maybe don't use tools but want direct contact. The other ones you need to have tools for. I'll get back to that a little bit later with influencers. PR, community building, the loyalists, they need to bring people to the funnel and showcase your game, your new features of your game on your Steam page a lot. So give them updates, show them, hey, we're doing something cool now, we're building this feature, or we just finished this feature. It could be just as well that you're asking your community, hey, which one do you like more? I have 2 images. Which of the characters do you like best? And especially that kind of dialogues really creates a strong loyalist feeling amongst gamers on the community. And I like that as well, very much. One last thing, on all the communication that you do, make sure that you have this call to action at the end. Go wishlist us, visit the website, go to our Reddit page. Always make sure that you're asking something of people that really feels natural to them. So don't ask them for send me donate money towards me. No, that's not going to work. But wishlisting is easy. Visiting a website is always like, oh, okay, I'll click on that one, and it actually works. But don't have a CTA that says, go to the website, sign up for my newsletter, watch my 5 trailers, and like my screenshots on Instagram, please. That's not going to work. Use one. Be very clear and specific. So let's talk about community. Like I said, your game is announced. You're talking to a community on the primary platform that you've selected. And this is the place where you're going to validate new ideas. You're going to talk to them. You're going to get feedback from them. And you're going to try to do some crazy stuff in there that will help them interact with the IP and with the game itself. And one last thing, prepare creative assets ahead of time. I can't stress this enough, because there's going to be the specific cool moments where you think like, oh, we can quickly attach yourself to something that's happening in the world. The whole thing about this new football soccer league that was going to be started with 12 big teams in Europe, that sort of got everybody worked up. Heineken quickly followed up with an ad saying, don't drink and start a new league. Drink responsibly. And using that kind of communication makes it real easy. They use their standard art assets for that one. But moving so fast on events that happen in the world will get you people, you'll stand out. People like that. And if you have enough assets, that will make your speed so much higher and your response quicker. Community post examples. There's more to it, of course. Monster Train is doing 2 to 3 posts on different for each platform per week. Sometimes we do it on a daily basis. We do that on, we have, of course, our weekly streams, but we're also trying to do a lot of funny stuff together with existing memes. We take small snippets from videos, recut them from famous influencers, for example, and use that as main communication tools. We reached 500 players. That means we needed to have artwork saying thank you and that kind of stuff. So there's so much art you can use in different ways. And if you work ahead on that, it's going to make your life so much easier, because 50 to 70% of your community posting you can plan ahead. And then you have enough time to think about the last 30% and how to make that super snappy and cool. Again, it's making your life easier, and it also creates a more lively timeline. So let's talk about influencers. Influencers are key to the success. How do you going to engage with them? What do you have to show about your game? Do you have like a public beta, or maybe it's a closed beta they can show to their audience? Because influencers want to have something unique, something just like traditional media. They want to stand out. They want to be special, because they're going to value or measure the success of your game on the amount of people who are being subscriber towards them. So reach out directly to the influencers you really want to engage with. And expect that if you're sending out 100 emails, you're maybe getting 10 replies. And from those 10, 5 want huge amounts of money. and maybe 5 of them might be interested, and you end up with one. But that one could be the most important one. But be prepared. You're sending out a lot of communications towards them, and unfortunately, a lot of influencers have agencies connected to them, and those agencies are just as much filling their own pockets as they are filling the pockets of the influencers. So sometimes they bring an insane amount of budget towards in proposals that I'm like, you're crazy, you can't ask that. But be ready for that. It's a rough territory. One of the things I found out with Monster Train is that you could use just as well grassroots principle. You push a lot of communication and effort towards the nano and micro influencers. And just for reference, I showed some numbers in the lower right ones. But even I would go even below 1,000 if it's a specific territory I want to get more traction in. But I'm using a tool called Keymailer. So I'm sending automated keys towards them. And I'm getting reports back on how many people converted that key into an actual play session. And by using a lot of ground up activity, the bigger influencers, they want to stand out as well. So they're looking for the smaller ones. What's happening in the bigger pools? What's happening there? What are the smaller ones playing? Because maybe that's where the new perfect new game, the new Fortnite is coming up from. So if you do it bottom up and top down a little bit with money, you create this ecosystem where a lot of stuff is happening around your game and everybody wants to be part of that momentum, because releasing games is all about creating momentum. I'll get back to that a little bit later. For Monster Train, we focused on specific Twitch influencers, but also on some YouTube influencers. But there's more than just the game influencers. If your game is about cats, I would really suggest reach out to several cat influencers. Have custom-made assets for them. Make sure you use their name, for example, in certain parts. Or if you have the means within your game, maybe it's an achievement somewhere where you connect it to that influencer. They like to be, because an influencer is a personality and it's a brand on its own. And any endorsement on that brand is something beneficial for them. And it's also appealing to their own prestige in a way. You're sweet talking in them, basically. But it does work. And last, don't forget to stream yourself on Steam as much as possible. This is one of the key things as well, part of the beautiful Steam promotional machine. If you stream your game, you'll get easier coverage on the front page of Steam, or at least in the lists of games being streamed at the moment. And that will grab new audiences. And if you sort of get a small hit in there or a momentum, your numbers can go up quickly. For a really basic stream on Steam, it's about 500 to 1,000 people easily, because it's just people who are using Steam as a discovery tool for new games. And a few of them use them, just see what's going to be streamed at the moment and check those games out. Maybe there's something interesting. Because not everybody is coming to Steam with a specific motivation to buy a certain game. A lot of them are like, I need a new game. Let's go and visit Steam, and we're going to go through the top seller list, up and coming maybe. Maybe there's an early access game I need to check out. And they just want something new. And that's one of the places where you need to be visible with your game. So I'm looking at an overview from solidgenome.com. Don't worry, all those tools are being listed later on in a different slide. But this is a public source that gives me information on how many people have played Monster Train. So for example, this is the most watched channels which streamed Monster Train in June 2020, which was 9 days after we came out, 10 days. So that month was really super important for me. Some of the influencers you see here are paid. So Dolphin Chemist was paid, Europe Full Skate, Celerity, and that's it. So free. And the other ones sort of picked the game up because they saw bigger and smaller influencers stream that game. And they all liked Slay the Spire. So I knew they were sort of positioned in a certain area. I need to go faster because I'm CM 1045. Northern Lion was at place 39. but he was key to the success of the game because on YouTube he created 122 videos of this game. And everybody, I saw the feedback coming back on my Steam forums. People like this because they saw Northern Lion play the game. I can't really remember how many times I've seen it, but I remember the first 2 weeks I was so amazed on how many people were referencing Northern Lion's videos. That was pretty cool. Release timing, commit yourself only when it's ready. So when you're sending your game out, you don't need to release your game when it's ready immediately. It's okay, do a small QA test on there, just make sure that most bugs are out there, and then find the time that matches best for your game. So don't go head to head with competition because you're forcing gamers to split. Avoid AAA releases. I talked about it mostly. Maybe you want to sync up with Payday. In the Netherlands, for example, it's the end of the month, but in different territories it might be at different times. But at the end, when you get your paycheck, usually people have a little bit of money to spend and they're dying to spend it. So ready for that one. See if you can connect with any Steam events. Could be just as well with Epic, of course. Avoid launching in midsummer. Maybe if you have the right game, that's going to work as well. But most publishers try to avoid that one because people are spending time outside and not inside behind the screen. Some of them are. I usually am. But it's most people. The bigger audience isn't. And avoid December and early January because people are spending money on gifts for their friends. And maybe it's not always a game as a gift. People are spending a lot of money on clothing, on food, and maybe some drinking, that kind of stuff. Hopefully this year it's going to be possible again. But it's part of where people are spending or allocating budget to different sections. On the right, you see the Steam Spy overview of how many games are being released per month. Again, this is public information. You can pick it up yourself. You see 2020, a lot more games are coming out. It's almost 25% more. There's sort of an even breakdown per month. In October, more games are coming out, which is sort of saying that's a really bad time to put your game in there because you have so much more competition and gamers can only spend their dollar or euro once. Going forward to the layer cake, so creating momentum. And the layer cake. The layer cake tastes much better if you use all the different flavors in the layer cake. And that is exactly what marketing is. Marketing is going to work better if everything reinforces itself. And if you do that correctly, you create momentum. Momentum you'll have probably with any given game in general about 3 weeks. That's the moment you have to get about 60% of your sales out there, because afterwards you're going to do it with discounts and communication and DLC. But the first 3 weeks, that's where the Steam machine is working the best for you. So put a lot of energy in there. Make sure you got a planning in place and just sync everything with your release date and the 3 weeks that are going to happen after that one. It might also make you think about what's going to happen after that third week. Well, that's the post-launch discussion. Something new and cool from Steam, UTM links. It always was that I could drive thousands of people towards my Steam page. I could not see what the conversion was towards wishlisting or sales. These days I can. So filling up my tunnel is going to be much more scientific. I'm really looking forward to that one. This is new. This sort of was released 2.5 weeks ago. So spend a lot of time in there. It's real easy to do it. And the UTM link sort of says it helps Steam track where the traffic in the funnel is coming from. And for example, if I have an auto game, a car game, race game, and I'm advertising on car websites, I can create a specific route that's measurable compared to if I'm advertising on a specialized game website. And I can see the difference in conversion and how much revenue I'm getting from each campaign. Then it's time to push that red button, people. This is a magical moment. Launch your game. Steam page, forums, reviews. That's where you need to be really proactive and visible. Like I said before, people look at review scores. And for Monster Train, we started out with overwhelmingly positive. Recently, we released the DLC, but we also cut the price down to about 50 to 40% discount. And you see that attracts different kind of people. In the beginning, it was the core audience, and now it's maybe a little bit more variety gamers, people who like to play different kind of genres. And they are a little bit more critical in their reviews. So you see stuff where you're getting a very positive, which is still pretty okay. But we like to be overwhelmingly positive, of course, because then you will stand out more towards competition. Have a launch trailer. Have a cool one. Don't and maybe you need to put some accolades in there. And accolades could be just as well a quote from a media or a website, or from a famous influencer, for example. Social posts, so you've got at least 3 weeks of partying ready. You're ready to place a lot of images out there, make fun with the community. It's not just pushing that button, then there's another 3 weeks of hard work, unfortunately, ready for you. As a marketeer, this is my favorite time of the year to say, because then I'm talking directly to the audience. They finally get to play. I'm seeing validation on the quality of the product, of the game, but also I'm seeing the results of the different campaigns I'm doing. One thing you can ask your community is to do reviews on Steam for you, for your game. Don't be afraid to do that. That could be a clear call to action. Maybe not in the first day, but after 2 weeks, you're going to ask people, hey, you've been playing 2 weeks my game. I would really appreciate your help if you could do a review on Steam. And that just works. People do reviews that way. All right, going forward quickly, some tools. So check SteamDB, Steam Spy, PlayTracker.net, for influencers, Study Genome, Keymailer.co. Check those out. Those are just one of many, just some examples. But it's cool. It will give you a little bit more information on how to approach your marketing campaign. Of course, you've had Google alerts ready since the last, since your pre-announcement phase, but keep those going and really dive into the Steam ecosystem. There's so much tools available for them on the back end. There's a lot to be getting out of there. Phase 4, post-launch. So update your game regularly, of course, bug fixing, new content. Maybe there's a game, you have a game that needs balancing. Monster Train was one of those games. So we spent the first 3 months really doing a lot of balance changes. It's also something we needed to learn, especially the developer, Shiny Shoe. But we've got a good system in there. We've did some small updates for Halloween, for example, but you can do Easter, Christmas, whatever works for you. If you have a game connected to folklore, you can do a lot of connections there. But it will bring your game again on top of the pile in Steam, and it will stand out a little bit. Get traffic in there. Steam will pick that traffic up, put you more in better position on the front page, and then you will start selling more, getting more online visibility. You know, that's how the flywheel works. Community activities, in-game events, but also Ask Me Anything, stream, social, go out on that one. Allocate some budget and resource for this. Don't forget it. It's super important. And this is it. This is the end. Sorry, Simon, I've spent too much time talking. You should have stopped me.
No way. I didn't want to stop you. It was a great overview. Thank you so much, even for spending time on Koningsdag, which is a holiday in the Netherlands. So
Yeah,
really great for being so open on your strategies. I really liked it. We have quite some questions, actually, some good ones. So people, if you haven't did that yet, have a look and maybe upvote the ones that you really want to be answered. Because we won't be able to discuss all of them. I saw one of the early questions that I really wanted to ask. Actually, it was something that was also asked in the registration form, and it's about publishers, working with publishers. Some people were asking, like, when is it better to work with a publisher, or when is it better to self-publish? Could you give some brief ideas on that? Because
sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's best if I turn it around a little bit and just explain to you what we as a publisher do. So we help you with QA, FQA testing on your game. We help you define the marketing strategy, but also the identity of your game. but we're also going to help you connect and apply for the different platforms. If you're going for console releases, for example, that's a whole different ball game. That's a lot of details in there that need to be followed. So especially for the console corner, I would say maybe a publisher is a better bet because they have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge and experience, and also know how to do it quickly. And we're talking to any kind of different console owner with many different games. So tomorrow I'm talking with game B, but today I'm talking about game A. So we have an existing relationship, and it makes it so much easier to get stuff done and move forward because it's a lot of information that will come over you like a big tsunami. For PC on its own, it depends if you have a team which is equipped with a good QA, with a strong marketing person, and you have the capacity in there to really jump in there. It could be interesting to do self-publishing. Really, Steam is a tool that gives you all the access that I have as well. So that's going to be super beneficial. Again, it's the same thing as with the consoles. Remember, when we talk to media agencies or to media outlets, we're talking to them with multiple games, and also there's often budget involved. So that makes our side of the conversation a little bit more easier compared to when somebody is coming for one game. And then a journalist can't speak to 2,500 different indie developers, but they can talk to 10 different publishers. And we are one of those 10 publishers. Well, 10, maybe it's 15. But it sort of makes communication and handling on their side as well easier. I spent 4 years on the other side being a media publisher, and I know sometimes you want to talk to everybody, but you don't have the time and resources to do so. In those kind of corners, a publisher might be really beneficial. But there are a lot of, you need to pay us. So that's going to come out of your pocket in a way. It's going to be a margin, of course. And our promise to you is, hey, we're going to help you sell more. So you're going to earn more in the end. But again, it's personal choice. There's not like there's this golden moment when it's, self-publishing versus, now you need to go to a publisher. I think the biggest part is resource and capacity within your own team. Think about it really honestly. Do you have that resource in your team? If you have, well, maybe self-publishing isn't that bad.
Yeah, I think that's clear. Weighing in the balance of knowledge, network, resources, and then making a good choice for your game and your platform. Okay, some other questions were about the best time to release a game, the best time in the year, but also maybe how many times should you leave between announcing your game and releasing your game? Because
I
too
see
long.
A question from Sven Cornet there, especially about long run versus short term.
Yeah.
It depends on the idea of your game, the identity of your game. Is your game like stretched out really long? Are you in early access? Maybe that will mean you have a really longer communication period. In my experience, I see communication periods only getting shorter and shorter. Why? Because you're closer to the final product as a developer. So you're not selling hot air. Maybe I saw Cyberpunk as well somewhere. Somebody mentioning I released it the same day as Cyberpunk. Ouch. But Cyberpunk is one of those games that have been communicating for years and sort of behind the curtains. They reiterated their engine 20 times. They went in a whole different direction with some elements. So you're communicating parts of the game that sort of die in the development process. So the short version is a condensed communication campaign. Make sure that you're as close as possible to the true game, to the final product, and you have a short attention span with the gamer you're facilitating there. So it's really going quickly. I would say a year-long communication is already super long. I would aim at 8 months, 6 to 8 months as a communication period, because you don't have the financial resources to keep the attention of the gamer spread over a long time. So it needs to come from intrinsically from the game itself, and that's more difficult because there are 2,500 other games out there that are doing the same thing at the same time. So usually budget is involved. And that means you need a large pile of money just to make that happen. Cyberpunk had the budget to go with all E3s, they could send out millions of videos, but in the end, I'm not sure if they succeeded in their own targets, and if you see the amount of backlash they're getting, it's not positive for them. Again, this is an extreme example, of course, but it's the easiest one I can lay out now. But it could be just as well that you're using early access as a communication tool as well. Connected community there, and early access is a great tool to really spread out without financial means your communication period.
Yeah.
Is that an answer sufficiently?
I think so. Yeah, great.
I'm rambling again.
No, not at all. Do you have like sort of a formula to calculate whether an influencer is worth the investment? How do you look at it?
Oh yeah, no formula. But if you find that one guy is successful, like for Monster Train, again that example, but it worked really well for us. Northern Lion, I spent a considerable amount of money convincing him, but also using different routes to convince him. So I just didn't contact him and told him, here's the pot of money, please do an influencer stream for me. No, we really took our time for that one and built it up and got some friends of him involved, and they sort of recommended the game to him. So a key influencer can really be the starting point of your momentum. So I would say that could mean, for example, a big portion of your influencer budget can go to that person, as long as you have supporting means available. Don't spend all your money on one guy, because that's the whole discussion of don't put all of your eggs in one basket. That works just as well for influencers. Spread it out a little bit and make sure if you're talking to a big influencer that you have a lot of efforts on the lower side as well, grassroots activities.
Okay. I'm going to take one more question because I see we're already going over time. It's another one by Johan. What about a very narrative-heavy game in regards to influencers? Balance between spoiling your game and narrative versus the exposure you're getting from it. How do you look at that?
I'm working on a story-driven game at the moment. I would say the right influencers know how to treat a story game. So they'll play a part of it. They're not going to play the full game in one go. But really story-driven fans, they don't want to spoil and have to spoilers themselves as well. So maybe they'll watch a part of an influencer and just see his reaction and see if he likes it. And it's okay if it's the first 10 minutes or something, but they're not going to watch for hours and hours do somebody have a playthrough of a story game. They want to do that themselves, especially with story games. That's your own personal experience that you need to follow through there. Yes, they are there, and I would always give some recommendations towards the influencer. Hey, you're playing my game. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate it if you could focus most of your streaming on level A and stop somewhere in level C when you reach the third door, because there's a major plot twist there. And you would really help me out. Be human. Ask the guy just to stop where he needs to stop. And from the 100 people, 90 will stop at that point. 10 influencers will stream your whole game. Well, welcome in 2021. That's going to happen like with every game. But not the really story-driven fans. They're not going to watch that whole stream because they want to have the experience themselves. But it's a painful question. Yeah, I know. It's a difficult balance to find, and it's all about giving recommendations there.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more. Some people are really eager, and I understand it.
I saw more time if it's needed.
Yeah, but they're eager to know how you look at mobile games.
I saw.
Do you have any specific tips there, or somebody even asked, is it worthwhile for a paid game? Is it worth putting the effort into it? How do you look at it?
Yeah, mobile. To be honest, I don't have that much experience with mobile. But if I would approach, let me rephrase it. If I would approach a mobile project, I would approach it with a data-centric approach. So mobile is much more data centric and much more. They have much more sources to get good data from there, because you're using a phone and that phone is collecting personal information about you, so we can know much more about you as a player. And I would find a big partner to connect to. And that doesn't mean you need to make a Lego game, but you need, for example, maybe it's on a local level where you work with a telco, or it's a connection to a TV program. Yeah, because there's so many games on mobile. There's so much free content available for mobile users that is insane. But I'm going to be super transparent. I don't have that much experience with mobile there, but
Okay.
I know it's difficult. But there's more data available, so that's the upside there.
We have some great examples in Flanders of mobile games with a partnership with like the Sims de Wereld or Switch.
Yeah.
It's a good idea indeed. We saw that work very well. Thank you very much, Michiel. Thank you everyone for listening, for your interaction, for the questions. I think we had a great webinar, and that's thanks to you all. So thanks a lot, and hope to hear you later. I see Pascal already shared the link for the Belgian Game Awards, so that's also covered. Thank you a lot. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.